So, have you ever walked up to one of those, brand new heavy glass
Oh,
doors?
like at a modern office building or something?
Yeah, exactly. And when you push the handle, it swings open completely effortlessly.
Right? It feels almost weightless.
Yeah,
Like there's zero resistance between you and the movement.
totally weightless. Yeah. It's completely silent, incredibly smooth. But then, imagine grabbing the handle of a heavy rusted gate.
Oh, that's a very different feeling.
Completely different. You pull it and the metal immediately fights back. It screeches, you can actually feel the grinding vibrations traveling up your
Oh,
arm.
yeah, you feel it right in your bones.
Right. And well, welcome to this custom tailored deep dive where we are going to completely overhaul how you think about that exact type of mechanical resistance.
But not in architecture, obviously.
No, no, not in architecture. Inside your own knees, your hips, your shoulders. Today, we're tearing down this incredibly lazy, culturally ingrained assumption that joint stiffness is just, some unavoidable toll you pay for getting older.
Which is such a prevalent myth. It's everywhere.
It really is. So we are pulling from some fascinating research on the science of frictionless movement, specifically looking into the biological framework behind Biodynamix Joint Genesis.
And we're going straight to the biomechanical root of those daily aches and pains.
Exactly. So as you're listening to this right now, I want you to think about the last time you stood up from a low chair. Did you feel a stickiness, a
A
tightness?
literal creak in the machinery.
Yeah, a physical creak. Because I feel like we all get that sometimes.
Well, that physical sensation of a creak is not an illusion. It is a very real, very measurable mechanical event.
Right. It's not just in your head.
No, not at all. But to understand why that grinding happens, we have to look at the biological environment of a healthy joint.
Let's do it. What does that actually look like inside?
So when you look inside a knee or a hip, you aren't looking at two dry bones just resting on top of each other.
Which is kind of how a lot of us picture it, honestly. Like a skeleton in a science classroom.
Exactly, but it's much more complex. The ends of your bones are capped with articular cartilage, which is this incredibly smooth white tissue.
Okay, smooth tissue. Got it.
And that cartilage is entirely enclosed in a capsule filled with something called synovial fluid.
Synovial fluid. And what is that exactly? Like water?
Not quite water. This fluid is thick, viscous. It's almost exactly like the consistency of an egg white.
Oh, wow. An egg white. That's really thick.
Very thick. And when that joint environment is optimized, the friction coefficient between your bones is actually lower than the friction of two pieces of ice sliding against each other.
Wait, really? Lower than ice on ice? That is wild.
It really is. It's a masterpiece of fluid dynamics, honestly. That system is designed to allow thousands of pounds of pressure to transfer effortlessly every single time you take a step.
That's incredible to think about.
But the core thesis we are breaking down today is that when that effortless glide vanishes, when you start feeling that grinding resistance, you aren't just, feeling your age.
Right, which is what everyone tells you. Oh, I'm just getting old.
Exactly. But what you are actually experiencing is a localized drought.
A drought. I like that word for this.
Yeah, it's a physical lack of that synovial lubrication, which creates a massive spike in internal friction.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because
Uh,
moving from the biology to the pure mechanics is where the reality of this really sets in for me.
It's a very mechanical issue at its core.
Right, and in the mechanical world, we understand this perfectly. Like, if a factory gear runs out of hydraulic fluid, it overheats and shatters.
Instantly, it's catastrophic.
Yeah. Or, we obsess over getting the oil changed in our cars every few thousand miles because we know the engine will seize.
Nobody ignores their car's oil.
Nobody. But when it comes to human biology, we treat our own machinery with shocking negligence. We totally ignore the oil in our own knees and hips until our body's check engine light comes on. Why is that?
Well, I think it's because we have this massive blind spot. We tend to conceptualize our skeleton as a static scaffolding.
Like the steel beams of a house or something.
Yeah, exactly. But joints are highly dynamic, fluid-dependent engines.
Mhm.
Think about two meshing gears.
Okay, two gears.
If they're properly lubricated, let's call this gear number one, they spin quietly. They're smooth.
Because the oil is doing the work.
Right. The fluid absorbs the heat and the shear force, meaning the metal itself experiences very little wear and tear.
But if we strip that oil away,
Then you have gear number two. The physical surfaces are forced to interact directly.
and that's where the grinding starts.
Precisely. That creates resistance, which generates heat, which leads to micro-tearing and rapid degradation.
So inside your body, when the synovial fluid volume
Or
drops,
when the fluid becomes thin and watery instead of that thick egg white consistency we talked about.
right, then your cartilage is forced to take the brunt of the impact.
Yes, and the physiological symptoms you feel, the heat, the swelling, the popping noises, the restricted range of motion, that is the biological equivalent of metal gears sparking and grinding.
The noise part is what always gets me. Because, people will casually say, oh, my knees sound like Rice Krispies when I take the stairs.
Snap, crackle, pop.
Yeah, they treat it like a quirky party trick. But what you're saying is that popping and crunching is the literal sound of biological friction.
It is the auditory symptom of a dry joint.
Just surfaces snagging on each other.
Exactly. When the fluid isn't thick enough to keep the cartilage surfaces separated, they catch and release. That catching and releasing is what generates the sound.
Okay, this brings up a huge question for me. Because if this friction is a constant structural issue, like a dry gear,
Right.
why does it fluctuate so drastically throughout the day? I mean, the most universal complaint in the source material is morning stiffness.
Oh, absolutely. Morning stiffness is huge.
People say, I feel rusty in the morning, or my knees crack when I stand up. They feel like the Tin Man before he gets his oil can.
That's a very common analogy.
So if friction is a constant mechanical issue, why does it feel like our joints literally dry out overnight while we sleep?
What's fascinating here is that it comes down to how cartilage actually feeds and hydrates itself.
Okay, how does it do that?
This is where the mechanics get truly fascinating. Cartilage is avascular.
Avascular, meaning no blood vessels.
Correct. It does not have a direct blood supply. It can't just draw nutrients and hydration from your veins the way a muscle does.
So how does it get any fluid at all?
It acts almost exactly like a dense kitchen sponge.
A sponge, so it has to physically absorb the fluid around it.
Yes, but think about how a sponge works. If you throw a dry, stiff sponge into a bucket of soapy water, it only absorbs a little bit on the surface,
And
right?
yeah, it just kind of floats there.
Exactly. To get the water deep into the center of the sponge, you have to physically squeeze it, wring it out, and then let it expand to suck the fluid in.
Oh, okay. I see where this is going.
Your cartilage works the exact same way. The physical act of walking, bending, and bearing weight compresses the cartilage, pushing old waste products out.
And then when you take the weight off,
The cartilage expands, pulling fresh, hydrating synovial fluid deep into its matrix.
so movement is the physical pump that keeps the tissue alive.
Movement is the pump. Now, apply that to your question about morning stiffness.
Right, because when you lie in bed for 8 hours, you are completely inactive.
The pump shuts down, the cartilage isn't being squeezed, so the synovial fluid isn't being circulated.
It just sits there.
It just pools in the joint capsule.
Yeah.
The cartilage matrix essentially dries out and stiffens up while you sleep. Think of an unused hinge sitting still for months.
Wow. So when you swing your legs out of bed in the morning and put your full body weight onto that joint,
You are stepping onto a dry, brittle sponge. The fluid hasn't been pushed back into the tissue yet.
that sounds painful just thinking about it. The sudden load on unlubricated, stiff cartilage causes a massive spike in friction,
Precisely. Everything feels incredibly tight, restrictive, and often quite painful.
which completely explains the other side of the phenomenon. People always say, I feel better once I get moving. I feel so stiff in the morning, but once I make my coffee, I loosen up.
Exactly.
By walking to the kitchen, they are manually pumping the synovial fluid back into the cartilage.
They are turning the crank on the fluid pump. But, and this is important, we have to make a very crucial distinction here.
Oh, wait, what's the distinction?
Movement can only redistribute the fluid that is already in the joint. It cannot magically create fluid out of thin air.
Ah, so if you're low on fluid to begin with.
Right. If the overall volume of your synovial fluid is fundamentally depleted, if the factory has slowed down production, then walking around might spread out the meager amount of fluid you have left, giving you a temporary reprieve.
But the overarching friction problem remains.
Exactly. The fundamental drought is still there.
Wait, let me push back on that for a second. Based on the text, if my body naturally manufactures the synovial fluid, why would the overall volume drop in the first place?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. If movement is the pump, shouldn't just staying active be enough to solve the dry gear problem entirely?
It's a logical assumption, but it ignores the reality of cellular metabolism. The specialized cells inside your joint capsule that manufacture synovial fluid.
The factory workers, essentially.
Exactly. They produce a specific molecule called hyaluronin.
Hyaluronan, got it.
That's what gives the fluid its thick, slippery texture. But over time, often due to chronic inflammation or oxidative stress, these cells become less efficient.
I slow down.
They slow down their production of hyaluronan. So you aren't just dealing with stagnant fluid, you are dealing with fluid that is becoming increasingly thin, watery, and scarce.
Which doesn't lubricate nearly as well.
Right. You can pump a dry well all day long, but if the water table is empty, you aren't going to get hydrated.
That paints a really terrifying picture of what's actually happening during high-impact activities. Because if the fluid is thin and watery, the shock absorption is basically gone.
It's drastically reduced, yes.
In the source material, they use a tire analogy, which I think is perfect. It makes me think of driving on totally bald car tires.
Oh, that's exactly what it's like.
A brand new tire with deep tread grips the road, absorbs the potholes, creates a stable, smooth ride, whether you're walking or climbing stairs or whatever.
The tire takes the impact, not the car.
Right. But if you drive on bald tires, every single pebble sends a violent shudder right into the chassis. The motion becomes harsh and unstable.
The structural integrity breaks down. Without the thick fluid buffer, the tire tread, all of that kinetic energy from walking down a flight of stairs or jogging on pavement is transferred directly into the cartilage.
And because the cartilage is dry and brittle,
It begins to fray. It breaks down faster than the body can repair it.
here's where it gets really interesting, because this makes the way most people treat joint stiffness seem incredibly dangerous.
The traditional quick fixes, you mean?
Yeah. We have this culture where the first instinct is just to numb the area.
Just mask it.
Take a pill, rub a cooling gel on it, make the sensation go away. But if the root problem is essentially driving on bald tires and running dry gears, isn't just taking something to temporarily numb the discomfort basically like putting a piece of black tape over your car's check engine light?
While the engine continues to grind itself to dust.
Yeah.
Yes, it's exactly like that. In fact, it is worse than just hiding the light. It actively accelerates the damage.
Wait, how does it accelerate it?
Well, think about what pain is. Pain is a biological warning system.
Yeah, right. It's telling you to stop doing what you're doing.
Exactly. It's your body telling you that the friction coefficient in that joint has reached dangerous levels
Yeah.
and structural damage is occurring.
Oh, man. So if you chemically silence that warning system without actually improving the lubrication,
What do?
you go out and use the joint heavily because you think it's fine.
Exactly. You load a dry, unprotected joint with heavy pressure, which grinds away the cartilage at an exponentially faster rate.
You run on the dry gears.
You run on dry gears. The central argument we need to absorb from the source material is that focusing solely on less pain is the completely wrong metric.
Numbing the pain does absolutely nothing to alter the mechanical reality of the friction.
Nothing at all.
So we need to completely shift the goalpost. The better question isn't, how do I turn off this pain signal? The metric has to be, how do I support smoother joint function?
Function is everything. When you shift your focus to reducing internal mechanical friction, the symptomatic relief naturally follows.
Because the problem is actually solved.
Right. If the gears are coated and sliding smoothly, they don't trigger the pain receptors in the first place. You aren't just hiding a symptom. You are fundamentally altering the environment of the joint.
Which brings us to how modern solutions are actually attempting to fix this. We've talked about Biodynamix Joint Genesis as the framework for this deep dive.
Right, which takes a very different approach.
Yeah, what's fascinating is that their approach isn't about treating joints as rigid structures. It's about supporting the body's natural lubrication, targeting that fluid deficit we just talked about.
Getting back to the biology of it.
Exactly. So what does this all mean for daily life? Because if I can't just drink a gallon of water to rehydrate my knees, how do you biologically force the joint to relubricate?
Well, you have to supply the joint with the specific biological building blocks it needs to restart the factory.
A hyaluronan factory.
Exactly. Remember that molecule. That is the crucial ingredient that gives synovial fluid its thick, viscous, shock-absorbing quality.
Right.
The biodynamics approach centers on delivering highly bioavailable forms of these molecules, along with compounds that manage the local inflammation.
So the cells can get back to work.
Exactly, so that the cells inside the joint capsule can begin synthesizing thick, healthy synovial fluid again. It's not about hydrating with water. It's about rebuilding the specialized biological gel that keeps the cartilage matrix suspended and protected.
It's about changing the actual consistency of the fluid back to that egg white texture so the friction drops.
Precisely.
And what's so compelling about this, especially in the text, is the psychological toll. What happens when that friction actually starts to
Oh,
decrease?
the mental relief is huge.
Right, because the burden of joint stiffness isn't just physical, it carries this massive psychological weight. The text highlights these small daily frustrations. It rarely ruins your life all at once, right? It's an accumulation of micro frustrations.
It is death by 1,000 cuts. It's the constant low-level calculation of movement.
Yes, it's standing at the bottom of a staircase and doing mental math about whether you really need to go up to the second
Or
floor.
avoiding a walk you usually take.
Exactly. Hesitating before you stand up from a low couch, bracing yourself for the creak, or, the most heartbreaking one, slowly, quietly dropping out of activities you used to love.
You skip gardening, you stop hiking.
You stop playing on the floor with your kids simply because the physical cost is too high. The physical friction inside the joint capsule generates an exhausting amount of mental friction.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that mental friction drains your energy and shrinks your world in ways that go far beyond just a localized ache in your knee.
You become a hostage to your own biomechanics.
You really do. But the grounded, practical perspective here is that restoring oil to dry gears is a biological process. It does not happen overnight.
Right, there's no magic switch.
No.
Yeah.
You cannot rebuild a depleted synovial fluid environment in 24 hours. But smoother operation becomes entirely possible when you consistently reduce that internal friction.
And it requires a holistic approach based on the text. You can't just take a targeted nutritional support and then, sit on the couch for 14 hours a day.
Oh, absolutely not. The
And-
habits listed in the text are crucial.
Right. It stresses that supporting the body's natural lubrication works synergistically with healthy habits. Staying hydrated, supporting healthy inflammation responses through your diet, and crucially, regular movement.
Because movement remains the pump.
Exactly.
Even as you're providing the joint with the building blocks, like with Joint Genesis, to create new, thicker synovial fluid, you still have to physically walk, stretch, and bend to force that new fluid deep into the avascular cartilage sponge.
The nutrition provides the oil, but the movement turns the gears to spread it around.
That is the perfect way to visualize it.
And the ultimate psychological benefit here, the real triumph when you finally address the root mechanical cause instead of just masking the symptom, is that you get to reclaim your mental bandwidth.
You get your life back.
Right. When daily movement finally feels easier, when your flexibility improves, you stop constantly having to think about your joints. You don't have to map out your Saturday based on how many steps are at the restaurant.
Or how long you have to sit in the car. You transition from actively managing your physical limitations to simply trusting your body again.
Trusting your body again. That is the true definition of frictionless movement.
It really is an incredibly freeing concept.
Let's pull all of this together because we have completely dismantled the old way of thinking today on this deep dive.
We really went from top to bottom.
We started by rejecting the idea that joint stiffness is just some mysterious, unavoidable curse of aging. We've looked under the hood and reframed it as a highly manageable biomechanical issue.
It is a crisis of friction, fluid dynamics, and lubrication.
Your joints are biological machines suffering from the dry gear problem, driven by a localized drought of synovial fluid.
And by understanding the mechanics of how the cartilage sponge absorbs fluid and why the hyaluronan factory slows down, we see exactly why just numbing the pain is a recipe for accelerated destruction.
It's so dangerous we have to support the biology that creates the lubrication.
We want you to remember this the next time you feel that stiffness.
Exactly. Whether you are prepping for a walk, dreading a long flight of stairs, or just want to feel less rusty getting out of bed tomorrow, you now possess a completely different framework for understanding what your body actually needs.
Cushioning and hydration, not just symptom masking.
Your joints aren't failing. They're crying out for the raw materials to rebuild that fluid, and they need movement to pump it.
They want to operate like that frictionless, weightless door we talked about at the very beginning.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on.
Oh, I like where this is going.
It builds directly on what the text revealed about inactivity and fluid distribution. We learned that cartilage acts like a sponge that absolutely requires physical compression to absorb nutrients.
The movement pump.
Right, so consider this. If our joints are essentially advanced biomechanical shock absorbers that rely on movement to pump and distribute hydrating fluid, how might our modern, highly sedentary lifestyles be impacting our anatomy long term?
Oh, that's a brilliant question.
By sitting at desks and resting on couches for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, Are we fundamentally starving our joints of the exact mechanical movement they need to stay lubricated?
Are we engineering our own dry gears
Yep.
simply by sitting still?
It forces you to look at your daily routine through a completely different lens.
Every hour of stillness carries a biological cost.
It really makes you want to stand up and stretch right now, doesn't it?
Very
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this deep dive into the mechanics of your own body, and we hope you walk away feeling empowered to change the environment inside your joints.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep moving, keep that fluid pumping, and we hope your day opens up for you just as effortlessly as a brand new door.